The old man will. The old man will. The old man will. The old man builds. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to instead. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Bills. Guys, awesome day. Not so awesome for our solar system, though, I'll tell you that. What's going on, guys? So, sorry, my hair is all messed up. We're looking at 3i Atlas, man. This thing's coming through our solar system, and they keep saying that it keeps course correcting towards Mars. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like that at all. They said off gas is green, and you got some people out there thinking it's extraterrestrial or something like that in nature. So in watching some of the videos out there is NASA that comes out and says, no, this is normal for a comet, that it course corrects, and as soon as it shoots off gases, it changes trajectory, which is plausible, and we see it in comets all the time. What concerns me about it is that we see it right off where we saw Umamamu, and then the size of it, and the fact that it's going towards Mars. So if Mars really did have a real moon out there, and then you did have enough, say, gravity on Mars, then this thing would be doomed to maybe hit something over there at any time. And then if this thing shifts again and puts out another gas, we could literally be looking at it, man, like it's going to be a planetary thing. And I'm not so sure it's so small that it's not going to affect it. You see, everything out there that's this size or something like that affects everything in the solar system. You got to understand that. We're all interconnected in certain ways through every planet in the solar system and the sun itself. If you start impacting something very big on a very small planet, that may be a problem. It's not like it's running into Jupiter where that thing sucks in everything. It's looking right at Mars. So, man, I don't know about this thing. You know what I mean? Would it be cool if it's extraterrestrial and they just like landed on Mars? Oh, dude, like everybody that I know would be out of their chair, like, dude, this is the most awesome thing in the world. You know what I mean? There'd be all kinds of story about the Anunnaki coming back, and it was perceived time that they were coming back at, and everything else. I just don't know that that's the case. I think we're just going through a nasty field in our you know what I mean, in our universe. I think that's what's going on here, and we're getting one of the bad things, and I don't think this is the end of it. That's the problem. We keep seeing these things come in here. They call it 3i Atlas because it's the third one. Think about that. It's the third one, and they're all coming in at one time. They're not like, hey, we got one 200 years ago, and then we got one 400 years ago. No, we pretty much are starting to get them, you know what I mean, right about now. And the reason that they looked out to the stars and everything else was because of this. You look at the Black Pyramid in Egypt, you could see right on the side they had something like this carved right into it. They knew something like this was going to happen. They checked where the sun and the moon were, because every time one of these comes into our solar system, it's right behind the sun. So we only see it during like lunar eclipses or something like that. And that's when the Day of the Dead was, man. You had 2 solar eclipses and Oumuamua came through our solar system. That's what it was. It was the first time it was ever seen. That's when it was the time of the Day of the Dead. Now here we are years later. We got another one coming through here, and it's way bigger. I mean, like, what the, you know what I mean? Like, why is this going on, man? Like, why is this so much bigger? I mean, think about it themselves. Mars's moons are small. I mean, this thing isn't the size of those, but it's, you know what I mean? It's not a little baby either. I mean, you hit one of those, man, and we're getting rocks chucked at us to Earth. So it kind of freaks me out a little bit when we see something like this, and they just kind of brush it off. You know what I mean? Well, we shouldn't. We should never brush something like us off. This is something they should put out. You know what I mean? All kinds of everything that we got to look out in this solar system and find anything else coming through, because we're about to hit a real poo storm, if you know what I mean, full of it. And that's just the way I see it. This is not going to be the last one that comes through. And each one gets scarier than the next. You get the first one, okay, not going to hit us. All right, we're good. Second one, same thing. Third one, now it's getting close to Mars. Now we're talking, we got some problems here. Okay. And when its course changes and it goes closer to Mars, that's a problem. Now they say it's probably going to miss it by quite a bit. But I don't always trust these things. You know what I mean? Because you don't know. That's the problem, is you don't exactly know. And one time it could be headed, in a certain course, hits an off cast, and man, oh, it just changed by 300 miles to the other direction or closer to a planet. And you're like, well, that's a lot. They say, oh, but don't worry, we got a lot of distance in between. Buddy, you're changing courses like that, things are going to start whacking each other out there. I mean, we have other things out there when it gets past the planets. Okay. What happens when it gets to the asteroid belt? Did they say the trajectory is not going to go nowhere near that? What happens when it gets out further than that? See, it's a pinball out there. It's like a pinball machine. You're whacking the heck out of this thing every time you go by something. I don't know that I quite trust everything. And every time it course corrects, we get a little more freaked out. When it started putting off those green off gases, they just say, oh man, it's ice out there, it's ice melting, or that we got some of the gas coming off of it. Well, every time you put any kind of gas coming off of this, it's propulsion to one side. That's really what it is. It's taking it and flowing it through a tunnel of some sort and putting out the gas in one direction. It'll actually look like thrust when it comes out. It's like putting dry ice, on your table and watching it spin. It's doing it because it's off gassing, and this is what this thing's doing. It's literally shooting it somewhere. Well, what if the next one does it even worse? What if this is a hi, hello, we're here, and the next one's like, ha, I got your number. You know what I mean? I really think it's important to get back out to space to make sure that we can take care of our own out there. I'm happy, by the way, that we have a space force out there and all that, especially when you start seeing stuff like this. I know a lot of people laughed at it as a comedian thing, you know what I mean? Oh, the space force. But I'll be honest with you, man. I'd rather have them out there and getting back out into space, getting up to the moon, getting to Mars, and figuring this stuff out. Okay, much safer, much happier. Maybe we could do something about it. They can use some specialty weapons that they get in order to knock this thing out of the sky. Because I'm going to tell you what, nuking some things out there that are this size may not work for us. So, I mean, we don't have missiles that are faster than it, I don't think. Not up there. Maybe we have them on the ground here, but we ain't got them up there in space. I didn't see no big military installation in space as we're ready for this. I mean, we have other things out there that could do it. I mean, you get something that you organize plasma together in resonance, and you're going to get what is basically a phaser out of it. And we can use something like that to destroy something like this. It's just coherent plasma that self-structures, that is put into a form where it's like a laser, but it's multi-layered. And when you get something like that, it disintegrates matter immediately. So we could use something like that. They have that technology. It's part crowd control, part lasers, and they show some of it off. Not always do they show it off, but man, I know that they have it. I know it because you could build it in your garage if you were motivated enough. I'll tell you this, man, it concerns me a great deal when we start having things coming through our solar system. I don't like it. I'm sure many of you out there are kind of looking at it like, yeah, we ain't so comfortable with it either, you know. So there's a lot of things we can learn from this, though, if we pay attention. We're going to have to record this for history because at some point they're coming back. And what really concerns me is not so much a planetary impact because we may be able to avoid that. But what happens when you get too close to a planet? You see, you start affecting things on the planet. You start messing with the magnetic field of that planet. You start messing with all of the energy that's going on in the planet. It doesn't have to impact it, it has to come close. Once you get that, what if you create too much pressure in one direction? What if you go over Yellowstone? What happens then? You see, you don't have to hit the planet. You just have to go over when Yellowstone's right there by it and create a pressure against it. As soon as you create a pressure against it, it's going to bounce back out. And then here we go for some eruptions. We're going to blow half of California right off the map. That's what concerns me. So when we get over to Mars and stuff like that, are they going to have the same impact? Like, say this thing was bigger, right? If it was 2 or 3 times the size and it goes by Mars, would you start seeing volcanoes on Mars erupting? Does it have enough gravitational force to it? You see, that's the question. Gravitation is just about energy. It's about energy and creating a zone in the center that creates a vacuum. And when you're already in space, you already have somewhat of a vacuum, but this creates a larger vacuum inside in order to create gravity. But you have to have an energy differential to do it. Well, when they're off gassing, you can produce that very quickly in plasma. So, could it be something that has a gravitational force in the future? That's what I'm worried about. Now, it could be, and it could change everything on Mars. You know what I mean? It could literally bring the planet back to life if it was a much larger object. I don't think the size that it is would do that. It'd more be a planetary killer, or if it hits one of those moons, we're all done for. If it course corrects and hits one of those moons, I'm not so sure that moon survives. I'll be honest with you there. Yeah, they could say no, it's much too small. It depends on the density of the center of it, doesn't it? You see, if it's super dense, then yeah, it's going right through it. Okay. Because I don't believe that those moons are super dense out there by Mars. I really just don't. I think they're shattered fragments from a bigger moon that was once there. And I think that they're vulnerable to impact, especially if you have something super dense at the core of it coming through our planet, or, not our planet, but our solar system. Would I like it to be aliens? That's kind of an interesting question, isn't it? Something has an advantage over us just by when they came in the solar system. At least the initial advantage. Do they have a further one beyond that? You see, technology is just technology, and we wouldn't have a problem matching it. As soon as we see it, we know it can be built. We'll put our minds to use and build it. You see, half of this country or more is off screwing around on their cell phones. But when you realize the threat, that number changes and we mobilize to fix things. That's probably the only time in our history that we do. So, yeah, we'd be able to meet it eventually, but I think we take a real hit initially. So, but what if they're simply pleasant aliens, Return of the Anunnaki or something like that? Well, that'd be really cool if they were here to help us, but I don't know that they are. So they said that they're out there and they got us to bring gold to them and stuff like that. What I am more concerned about is what if we misunderstood the stories? That's what bothers me. What if we misunderstood some of the stories that went on? What if they were making sure that our civilization had gold here? Because at some point we would have to amplify our magnetosphere to get through this crisis. What if that could be possible instead of just collecting gold for them? Let's face it, for those of us who understand this process, it's not hard to make gold. It really is not. The advanced species would not come here in order to do this because they can make their own gold. There's people doing it now. Does it have a half-life nuclear signature on it? Some of it does. Some of it's in a permanent state. We had a few weeks ago someone that was on the program, if you watch the late night part, when we did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, that was talking about it. And it was very clear that they had it. Why would they come here then? Why would they make sure it's precious to us? Because when they left, it was precious to us. Why would they make sure the jewels were precious to us? Why would they make sure silver is precious to us? It's not out of the realm of possibilities because we may need it one day. And if we haven't evolved completely, we would need it when we figured out how we do it. Gold is one of the most conductive things out there. Silver's real good as well. Those two things are precious metals that we would use. We're getting to understand resonance better, but a lot of the mainstream physics just throws it off like a trash piece of equipment when they shouldn't have. I'll say this, whatever the reason is, if they are some kind of alien, I'm not saying that they are. If they are, then we have to look back in our history and do it soon and figure out why. What were they really trying to tell us? Because if they were here, just, a couple slaves for some gold, that's great. But that's not what they did altogether. They came here, taught planting, farming. It's all over everywhere. When you look at it, they were teaching us something for a reason. They were teaching us about, our planet and how things go. Could it be that they were trying to help us out for the future? That's just my hypothesis on it. No one else has to agree with that. You could say they're going to come in here and just start shooting. Okay. You could say they're going to come in here with their blasters and just say, you know what? It's ours, bitch, and take it. You know what I mean? That could be 100% possible. You know what I mean? There's nothing stopping them. They come in here and we saw that UFO that directed that missile around it. Do you really understand why it did it? Let's get into this understanding of technology a little bit. Do you understand why it did it? You see, you got to put two and two together to figure this out. All anti-gravity technology is gravity. So think about it this way. If you wanted to shoot something at the Earth, would it penetrate the Earth right away? Well, the answer is no. You see, when they do the correction to put our astronauts back into our solar system, back into our Earth, they have to use specialized masks so that they don't bounce off. So what did you experience when you saw the missile bounce off? You saw a gravitational force not allowing the missile to penetrate because it took the wrong angle. That's what you saw. So when I tell you anti-gravity is only gravity, I'm not lying to you. It is a gravitational force inside of it. That's why they build them that way. It's the same thing as our Earth. You have to hit that angle just right in order for it to penetrate. Otherwise, it just bounces off. You see, our astronauts could have several times. If you guys ever watch those old school movies that come out, they tell you this all the time. The one with the math in it and stuff like that. They really got into some of the ways that the astronauts come back in and the angles they have to take. Okay. That was a really good movie, by the way. I can't remember the name of it. Sorry, bad with names. What I can tell you is this, is they created gravitational force in there because they had a gravity well inside their ship. And once they did, that no missile, if they're at the wrong angle, can penetrate that shield at all. And it never will. You have to hit it at directly the right angle in order to work inside of that gravity field because it's creating its own. You want to know why there's no inertia in an anti-gravity craft is because it's creating its own gravity. It requires mass to do that. You cannot have a gravity well without mass. So the more mass that it has, the higher gravitational field that it'll have. Just understand that. That's how they get into how gravity works. It's in negative energy because it's an accumulation of mass to create the effect. That's why it works that way. We do a lot of stuff on this channel that shows those effects going on. When you get into understanding that, you understand what energy processes are going on. This is not something that I cooked up by myself. I created a field over a year ago that can show when energy bounces off of things, when it'll allow it to capture it, and when it'll allow it to push it off of something. Once you understand that kind of technology and you know that you have it, then other people start to write it. And they start to look at your videos and understand what was going on. And they put math to it. Oh, this has happened already. Okay. We always call him Admiral Jack around here, but Jack went ahead, Jack's the 40, wrote a paper based on the same technology that I built. He wanted to tell you that it would hold in energy, and then on the outside, it would deflect the energy, and it would be a high amount of radiation going on. Well, on the outside, yes. It would be less on the inside because that's the way the energy builds out. You once you pressurize the inside of energy, it comes out, it becomes from radiant over to radiation. And that's what happens in this bubble when you build it. One thing that he got wrong in there is he didn't understand the compression of the core and why it's a gravity well instead of just a field. He called it basically a field that goes around it for an anti-gravity craft. He missed the fact that it's a gravity well because you're compressing and decompressing the core of it itself. That's what he missed. That's what the Earth does. That's why when I tell you it's like string theory, except for it's in 3 dimensions, I mean it. We are literally living inside what looks like a golf ball and how energy flows up and down like this. Okay. But what that means is it's pressuring in and out like this consistently, which means the center part that's in a vacuum is getting compressed and pulled out, just like this. Well, it's no different than a physics understanding of a Kashmir effect. You put the plates together, you have a very low energy level. You pull them apart rapidly, the voltage goes from 9 volts to 1,000 volts. Well, imagine doing that continuously. When you do that continuously, you have a ton of energy in there. What did they miss about most experimentations with this stuff? Is the energy has to be pulled out of the ground itself. They think that there's only one field and it's up in the sky. Well, that's a misunderstanding of how Earth works. There's a field below it as well. That field below it is what allows you to pull that energy out of it. You see, in any lightning storm, what you get is you have lightning coming down, but you also have it coming up to meet it. It comes right out of the ground in little tendrils, and then lightning strikes it. Why? Because as above, so below, but it's not a mirror like most people think it is. It's a single build out like this, and then it builds out in the same structure again. We don't have a hot magma in a core, we have hot plasma. There's a difference there. It created out a node, it built plasma that's a self-structuring plasma around it, and then from that plasma state, it builds out energy on different levels. That's how our planet built out. It doesn't make much of a difference when it comes to how the energy looks now because you're rotating an electret in the center, not magnetism. Magnetism is very weak when you do it. But when you rotate an electret, it brings out the magnetism in it. And it goes out like this, but it's always pulling back. Comes in, it's always pulling back. Once you understand that, then you understand why that missile goes off of it. They built out as aliens a gravity well. When you do that, now you have gravity in your craft. You no longer have inertia, and then missiles just bounce right off of it. This is not a new story. This is actually something that came up in the 40s and 50s, right after World War II, where they said that the UFOs came over Washington itself, and they said they tried to strike them down, and the bullets and everything would just bounce off of them. Well, now you know why. They couldn't penetrate the outside of it because they're at the wrong angle to it. They created gravitational force. I'll tell you another thing that happens that you should understand. Because there's radiation on the outside, what happens to everything in your radio and everything like this? Back then, there were tubes. We're just getting into MOSFETs, transistors, things like that. You saturate those things, and you could do anything you want to electronics. You could turn off your computer, you could turn off your car, you could turn off all of it for a short period of time. And then when the field leaves, those things will all come back on. You're not breaking it, you're saturating it with another energy source. You see, that little piece of information is exactly what this bubble does. You could put it in one form and it'll push out the energy all over your room, turn everything off. You can turn down the amount of energy on that and it'll just play with your computer. It'll go through every password you have, it'll go through every single thing on your computer without even asking. It goes right through everything. You have no firewall, you have nothing to protect yourself from it. If there was a nuclear missile silo below it, you'd be able to turn that sucker on and make that thing hot. That's another thing that they come out with these UFO stories and they tell you about. Well, this field actually does that. That's the scary part. It actually is doing it. Now you understand why. There's two forms of radiation. There's radiant, which is almost non-harmful, and then there's a real heavy radiation. It's like the demon core. When you're around it, there's a radiant energy. There's energy in the room. It fills up. But it's not anything overwhelming. You close that core and everybody gets annihilated. Just by that, just by the radiation alone, because it's the compression of that radiation. Well, what do you think it's doing when you're compressing it inside and out like this a lot? You're making that radiation flow to the outside and create a massive radiation field. That's why we have a Van Allen belt. What concerns me is a technologically advanced civilization like that, who understands all of this stuff, would be far superior to us in that we don't even understand the proper use of resonance. It scares me. Now, if they had harmful intents, we'd already be gone. Let's just make that clear. If they had harmful intents, we'd already be gone. If they wanted this planet blown off and completely destroyed, we'd already be done. There would be no problem to put energy beams here or anything they wanted to destroy our planet. That is an absolute fact with what's available in technology. So if it is alien, I do not think that they had harmful intent yet. Doesn't mean that they can't, but they didn't yet. And I have personally hoped that they're here to help us and that the story was backwards, that we understood that they were getting us to understand what gold was for and that we needed it for the future so that we would accumulate it. That's personally what I hope that they were doing. Do I trust that that's what's going on? No, we never do. We're people. We're humans. We don't trust that. We always think the bad intentions come first. I hope that if there is something like that, that they would send an emissary here and assure us of what's going on. It could just be that we're running through a very bad part of our universe. Think about it. We're not stagnant in the universe. I know it seems that way. You look out there at space, you see all the telescope pictures, and they look beautiful. All the planets are arranged nicely. Well, that's a misconception of what's going on. We are hurtling billions of miles per hour through a universe. There's a center of the universe, and all around it is where we're at. It's not stagnant, okay? And I'm not like, hey, it built out over here in this little tendril, and we're saying, hi, hello. That's not how it works. Everything is in rotation. Everything is in motion. Our planet's in motion. We don't feel the inertia. The universe is in motion, but it also takes our solar system in motion with it as it goes around. We are in a vortex. Just understand that. Hurtling through space. Our sun drives us towards one direction. Now, why don't we feel it? For the same reason you can stand on the planet and not feel it outside. You will feel no inertia in this zone because it builds out again, because nature repeats itself a lot. The sun itself is building out a field that protects us. And we're going to go through a whole bunch of garbage. We have different things that go on. That's why they call it, you know what I mean? The age of Aquarius, the age of this, the age of that, because we've been through it before. We continuously go through these fields. So imagine it be where some planet or some solar system died and it just destroyed itself. What happens then? Well, get ready because we're about to drive through a whole pile of it, if you know what I'm trying to say. It's like going through hail. We're just going to get nailed with everything. And that's what I think is going on here. I don't think at all that this is unknown or unforeseeable. I think it's just the opposite. I think it's the fact that everybody knows that they knew on this planet for a long, long time this was coming. And these things are coming through. What we need to figure out is exactly how to protect ourselves from it. That's what we need to do. It's no longer about can we sit in one place or can we be stagnant in technology? No. This is the time to either grow up and do it right, or we're going to get wiped out again and start over. Our species may not continue on past that. Now, am I going to be a doomsdayer and say we're going to die every day? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm trying to say is we need to put our foot on the gas to get out. Yes, to evolve. We need to go beyond where we are now. We need to get to that next level. We need to stop taking a bunch of garbage concepts that are mathematical theories at best that just explain the math before it, and let's get some experimentation that matches the math. Let's do it together. You know what I mean? I got a lot of experimentation that needs a lot of math added to it, man. And we can really figure this thing out and go beyond it. I think that's what we need to do. All hands on deck, man. Get it done. I do not like things coming through our solar system. I got kids, I got grandkids, like many of you. Freaks me out when I start seeing this stuff. I want us to grow past it. And I really think it's a time for us to do that. Anti-gravity technology is not that hard because it's gravity. Once they stop debating the simple fact of, hey, we're not an electric universe, or physics is the only way to go, or everything builds out in 2 dimensions on an XY axis. Yeah, they added a Z. Go in there and Google how many times it's used. Once you understand the geometry of things and how things work and how things build out and how energy builds out in the plasma and makes things, then this stuff doesn't become hard to figure out. I've done some of this stuff trying to make, propulsion systems, and all of a sudden I'm shooting lasers out the back end. It's all possible depending on how you want to configure something, but it's all the same energy source it's built from. I've been saying this for a long time, and I think people really need to understand this. I use a certain amount of circuitry in order to build everything out, and I could just about build out anything I want. I understand resonance and how it's used in a system and how it can amplify the daylights out of something. That's something that we all need to figure out because it's what's entangling things. They want to give it certain descriptions, but aliens already figured this out. They already figured out that the whole universe is entangled. The power source in the center goes through all of it, and then it's returned to the power source. Why? We're all just borrowing energy. You cannot create or destroy energy. Why? Because it's all coming from the center, and then it goes back to the center. You see, it's playing a repeater on you all over again. It's doing the same thing again and again and again. The only difference between the center of everything and where we are now is that it put it in an original resonance of all the frequencies, and it shot it out everywhere. In the RAV project that we do, we learn this. It becomes very apparent. It's plasma that is self-structured. Why would that be important? Well, because for the same self-structuring the plasma is, that's exactly how UFO fields work. When you get into creating a gravity field or a gravity well, you have to be able to understand self-structuring plasma. People think it's in rotation of a disk or rotation of the actual coil itself, and that's a misunderstanding of how it works. It actually grows out beyond that in fields. And you could say that they're not fields. You could say it's self-organizing plasma, and it is. But they have zones in there that separate them. You have high level, low level. You have positive and negative goes in there. You could call them sheaths if you desire. In between them, they will not allow energy to pass. That's how high voltage physics works. When you say it's not an electrical universe, well, it's an energy universe, and energy converts to all kinds of energy. You see, that's one of the misconceptions. It's not the electrical, it's the energy universe. And then if physics took that in, they'd see it. We could build nodes all day long. We could show every single one of them if we wanted to in electrical theory. That's pretty easy. That's one of the easy parts. Building out this field, it took me about a month to figure it out. And I built this field out with no problem. And it has a ton of energy to it. And it always has. I learned how to compress the center core of this thing way beyond what other people would figure out. They used to use ultrasound devices and stuff like that. I don't need them. I don't need them because I understood the physics behind it. There's a lot of things out there, man, that I concern myself with, and I really think we just need a lot more technology built out. That's it. That is it. This whole thing coming through our solar system is a wake-up call. There's going to be a bigger one. You think that there's not, but there is. There's could be a planet between, Mars and Jupiter that was once there. Think about where these trajectories go. If you base it on the size and where they come through, run your map and see where they go. Were they closer to Earth before? Did they move in towards Mars at that time? Where were they? Why did they come in this way? Is there a trajectory based on the size of the object itself? Those are the questions we got to ask. If another one comes through that's bigger, where's the trajectory going? You see, Mars is right in the path of it. And we're a little bit outside the path, but doesn't mean we're not going to get affected. If there was a planetary structure between Mars and Jupiter, which there's a moon out there, okay, Ellie or Ellis, or whatever you want to call it, it's out there. It was one of the moons of a planet, and they say, oh, well, there's not enough debris out there. Well, yeah, not now. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Oh, by the way, debris, you must stay in this zone, and you're not allowed to leave it. Yeah, that ain't happening. It hit everything in our solar system. If it cracked a planet, man, it hit everything. Everything. You weren't avoiding it. You weren't getting away from any of that stuff, man. Let me just tell you that. I think that's what happened. I can't prove it. Nobody can. And you can say one side or the other because we can't prove it. Yeah, Tiamat. Yeah. But why do the ancient stories always talk about it? Why was there a moon-sized object there when we went to go look? Think about that. Why was it there? Why was something destroyed? There was no question something was destroyed. Not one. Why would you ever think that there was a question about that? We see it destroyed. We see that it goes on in a spherical structure. By the way, that should be clue enough of what's going on. If you understand energy production and how it actually works, and you want to go through a secondary structure, it builds a sphere around it. Like I tell you how the self-organizing plasma does. On the outside of the sun, you're going to get the same thing. And they're going to build out just like this. We're running right in the rail of it. Puts a node right through our planet. Okay? We're on one of those little rails that goes around it. We move back and forth a little bit because the sun does. But Mars is on that as well. But what happens when you go out to where Tiamat was? Well, that same structure is built out right there. Think about that. It stays in those structures like that. We can see it clear as day. It's the only thing making it orbit properly around the sun. Now you can understand it better. There was something there. You can argue the size or anything you want. There was something there. What concerns me is what hit it. When did it hit it? Okay. Did something come through our solar system and knock this thing out? It could very well have. That's what bothers me. Because we don't know when these things start changing course, we have a problem. We have to solve for that problem. This agency that deals with this stuff needs to get a bit bigger. We need to get our efforts into this and find this stuff before it becomes harmful to us. That's what we need to go to. We need to have things out there, man. We need to have a bigger base out there. A couple of guys in a little Russian, you know what I mean, space station ain't going to cut it. We need to get some more stuff out there. And I sincerely hope that all the countries realize this. Hey, kind of a wake up call. We need to get out there. We need to have more instrumentation. We need to put anytime we can put a satellite up somewhere around one of these planets, we should do it to find any object possible to come and hit us. We must protect ourselves from this. That is one thing that we have to do, regardless of whatever you think of today. That's what we have to do. We have to get things in that manner. Find out how to protect ourselves. Or you could just be one of those people that's like, hey, buddy, come and hit us. That's not me, but it might be you. Okay. It's possible. Okay. I know some people out there are like, well, if it's coming, man, give me my beer, put me on the porch of my rocker, and I'm good to go. I get it. I definitely get it. But that's just not me, man. I'll do anything possible to make sure that, my kids and grandkids go and live on. So whatever that's going to take. And I don't mind, giving some free help or helping people build out things for that. I'll do that for free all day. I think we got a lot to learn as a species, guys, and how this is going. Like I said, anti-gravity technology is not that difficult once you understand it. Once you understand what they did, then you can build it. What we have to get past is you cannot take old models in understanding theory and apply them to today if they don't fit. If they're broken, take them out. Nobody thinks less of you, just take them out. Let's put the new models in there and let's move forward. You see, that's what they should have been doing all the time. Sometimes they don't do that, though. They try to convert things to the old model, and you can see this in physics all the time. When they start telling you about the XY axis and they tell you, okay, we got T1, T2, Y1, Y2, and that's how we're building it out. And anybody who's been through math class will tell you that you cannot build out points on a graph and use them as geometry. It doesn't work. They have a z-axis, don't get me wrong. I'm not lying to you about that. But they rarely use it. And that's one of the problems because everything's spherical in structure that we live in. And once you take and understand that, you go from an anode cathode effect from, hey, this height to this height, and you're going, okay, well, that's pretty cool. But now what if I'd made it into a ball and made a sphere around it? 360 degrees. What are you going to do now? I changed the geometry, so I changed how it works. I completely changed how it works. Why? Because in an open area like this, I have hardly any compression. But as soon as I make that spherical structure and make it all around it, I have massive compression. So I didn't just take the Kashmir effect of here. I now put it in 360 degrees to make a monster field out of it. Now we can start to see things a little bit differently, right? When you add geometry to something, it changes it. That's why when I built out that coil, when we built the Neutron coil, it's a diamond-shaped coil that goes like this, a Tesla coil. It works perfect, okay? People want to see that thing spin, and they want it to spin at least 7,600 RPM for one reason. It's basically an electric that builds out a magnetic field, and it's going to give you every answer to the core of our planet. Why? Because energy that builds out like that has a different signature to it. As soon as you put that in the core and you put a sphere around it, now you're going to get the energy to build out like this. You won't get the gravity well until you compress it. You're going to have to take the outside and compress it. We know how to do that all day. We learned that in fusion. that all you have to do is create a certain amount of magnetism on the outside, and you can compress just about anything that has to do with electricity. You just create a strong enough field that pushes it back in. Once you do that, it becomes compressed. Then it forces it to become, instead of radiant, it becomes radiation. Now you start to get into some real heavy effects here. Now things build out way differently than you thought they would. You see, we deal with radiation all the time. And when you deal with a Tesla coil, you don't think so. But try taking the amplitude of that Tesla coil and driving it through the roof. What happens? Everything in your room gets hot, but it's cold. You can put your temperature gauge on it. It's room temperature or below. But when you touch it, it's scalding hot. Why? It's 100% radiation. That wasn't a radiant field. That wasn't RF. That is radiation. RF comes out in AC Tesla coils when you want sparks. You see it in the air. Those little wavy lines come up, beautiful lines, all in AC. In DC, you get radiation. And you can tell when you have radiation. You can put just a Tesla coil, put another coil inside of it, and put a light bulb in there. Put it on that inside second coil, and then just tap another one on top of it. I don't care if it's LED. I don't care if it's incandescent. I don't even care if it's mercury. What you're going to get out of its radiation. I know I got blasted by it several times. It is 100% radiation that comes out of there because you're compressing something. The inside of your Tesla coil is an impulse. The outside is like an explosion. It's your pulse. There's a difference in the two. You have to understand that when you build out the physics of this, because the impulse is what you want for a technology of a field outside your craft. Why? Because in all the other energy, it's pulsed out. We're pushing the positive through everything. We're pulsing it, right? We know that. But where's the other field to hold it in? You see, it's got to be a layer that builds in between it. Okay? You need that sheath layer. In order to get that sheath layer, you must have the opposite of the electricity that you're working with. You must have the impulse on the outside. That's what creates that layer. Now you can build it out in rotational plasma. We continue to do that on this channel. We build it and we call it a RAV. What is it? I'll give you a little bit of understanding in a misconception of energy build out. People think that there's a bunch of specialized names for stuff, and it's really not. It's one thing, you're just changing the environmental structure around it. A plasmoid is ball lightning. Okay, let me just clue you into that. What's the difference? It depends on how you frame the area around it. You see, in the thunderstorm generator, they call it ball lightning in the inside, right? What is it? You have resonant, how do I say it? Spheres, okay, that build out a certain number. Why do they build out a certain number? Because that's the resonance you need in those areas in order to build something out with plasma that works in that way, that's self-structured. It's basically build it out, it builds from the center, builds out in rings it again on the resonance of each one of them. Okay? Very important, but you don't even need those there if you know how to do this. You could take an anode-cathode reaction and build that out the same way. What's the difference between ball lightning and that? That the Earth itself builds the anode and cathode. You see, you think you need energy at the bottom all the time. You don't. You just need a lightning storm. That's all you need. You see, because the energy itself, like I said before, has tendrils that come up. You see, but the energy comes down. So what did you do? You created high voltage on top and bottom. But the high voltage itself in the sky is now put in a compressor, basically in a capacitor form. You're building up the water, you're building up the field, you're putting it in a capacitor form. Once you put it in a capacitor form, it holds, discharges, right? We've all seen it in lightning. It holds, crackles, boom, and it hits. It's no different in high voltage. High voltage works the exact same way. What's the difference? The cathode itself doesn't always have to be there. Once you build out an area on the ground where that you can replace the cathode by using some kind of thing like carbon, and then it builds out in a structure, And we see this all the time in lava rock and stuff like that. It would be something that looks similar to that, but would be a different mineral form and some kind of a carbon structure. Once that creates on the ground, that top voltage up here, it can hit it at any time. Once it does, it immediately spins. Once it spins, it creates its own field around it. Now you have in air all lightning. You see, there's no difference between that and a plasmoid. The difference itself was where you created it. Did you create it in a structure that held it in? Did you create it in an open air anode cathode situation? Or did you create it in the environment outside where it used the actual lightning to build it? All of it's the same effect. All of it's the same energy types. It's the same exact thing. You just change the environmental structure of it. You see, if you can create one, you can create all of them. That's pretty simple on how things build out. Everything tells you that. Why? If I built the RAV right in front of you, you would say 99% that's a plasmoid. What's the difference? The difference in a plasmoid is you're going to need to put it in a chamber, and you're going to change how big the plasma layers are. It's going to thin out real super thin at the end, okay, and come out just on the outside of it, just like this. That's how a plasmoid works that they conventionally call one. What's the difference in the RAV? It builds out nice thick fields, okay? Has a sheath layer in between them. Every single one of them has their own resonance frequency. How do you amplify that? Once you know how to put something in resonance, you can now take the frequency of each layer of that RAV and increase it. It's the difference between using your ZVS to run your Tesla coil and a Slayer exciter. Slayer exciter put it at max resonance all the time, max amplification. The ZVS is very targeted. But if I made the coil to match the exact frequency of that RAV, I can amplify each single layer individually. I can create a mass amplification of it. I could probably double the size of the plasma that's in there. So what would you build your structure as? See, they keep building it as a donut shape when they build out for energy. And that's a misconception in science. They build out in spheres. Not a torus, a sphere. Why? They keep thinking magnetism. It's not. It's high voltage. You see, that's the difference in understanding what you're doing and going with what physics tells you. Once you physically build this thing out, you'll understand the difference. You don't need massive magnetism. Magnetism comes from high voltage. Think about it. All you're putting is a bunch of voltage through a wire and creating magnetism. That's what you're doing. But what is it showing you? High voltage. See, when you change how you structure that wire, now you could change it completely. You go from running a bobbin and just running wire around it to now putting it in layers. All we got to do is build it like an AC flyback. Sean Calderon, a good friend of mine that's on this channel, always does this to his coils. And he built a spherical coil. What do you think the best way to build out a RAV is? Put it inside one of those spherical coils where the resonance of each layer matches the resonance of that coil. You can amplify the plasma layers inside each one individually by doing it. You have now just changed the game. You wanted to get over that hump in when you create this kind of stuff. How do you do it? What's the missing key? It's always been the resonance. See, when they build out fusion, they're building it out and they're forcing plasma out, right? And they're building it in this donut, which is the wrong shape for it. They have a center core going through it and they build it out as a donut. That's a failure. That's a failure in fusion. They didn't understand what they're dealing with. They needed a spherical structure with an anode and cathode coming through where that you can get this thing to build out naturally. Once you do that, you do not need all the magnetism compressing this thing like you did before just to hold it in. You see, it'll self-layer itself already. Now you're going to have energy production and self-layering. You don't need to just push one roll of plasma around. You have multiple layers after it. Now compress it. Now amplify the resonance in it. The plasma itself grows exponentially. That's the difference in understanding it. They don't do that because they do not understand resonance. They say that they do. They learned it in class. They took a tuning fork to a box. They do not understand it. I wish they did. Be a lot further along by now. That's why the RAB's important, because we're self-structuring plasma. We do not require some of the energy to hold this thing in that they would. We require a lot of lead for the radiation you're going to get, that's for sure, but they've already put that in there. They've already baked that in. So there's not really a problem there. Self-organized plasma is the way to go. It's a different way to do it. I understand that, but it's also a way to get you over that number that you're looking for. Not very hot. Not until you compress it. It's the radiation that makes it hot. It's the radiation effect that's going to have everything going on. Go next to the sun. You're getting irradiated real fast. Real fast. Before you even hit the heat of the sun, you're getting irradiated. Okay? You ain't making it, buddy. There's no surviving that. The radiation out there, it'll take you out. In doing some of this stuff, you have to create that radiation layer. Yeah, we go through some of this stuff, a lot of it on the channel. We just show how it works. I don't really get into some of the speculation of what we're building because there's a lot of things that I built out that I just can't show you. They'll literally take everything from me. But the things that I can show are totally awesome. I mean, I can entangle those coils all day if I wanted to. All day. And I can hang them in different configurations. I mean, think about this. We put them in sacred geometry. If I put them in cubes and I put them around the center one, what happened? I'm building out energy to build it back. What does that mean? Think about what I said about how the cosmos works. You build out one structure in the center. It builds out everywhere just to build it back into the center. What does that mean? That every time I take a coil and I put a number 2 coil out here and I build resonance in it, it builds a node in the center that has a vortex on top and bottom, but they're not pushing out. They're sucking in the energy around it. It's sucking in all the energy around it. That means that I can turn down the amount of energy in my primary driver, turn up the amplitude of the resonance so that it just gets the frequency it wants. Okay, the resonance frequency it wants. That puts the understanding of that node in there. Now it pulls in the energy around it. What happens when I multiply that coil by a lot more? Now, this coil going to the next coil, going to the next coil, going to the next coil, what does it do? It builds out the energy. So once you put it in a structure all the way around it, at 360 degrees, what does it do? It builds back to the center. But I don't have to just build in one layer. I could build it in multiple layers. Once I build it in multiple layers, it goes back to the center. And as long as that center is built out perfectly to the same frequency as the ones out here, it self-runs. It's the only part in anything that's entangled that does that. It's the only way you can get it to do that. There's a lot of theory out there, and a lot of theory is wrong. When you build it, you'll see it. And I've seen it. I could do it all day long. There's a lot more to that UFO thing and what they tell you about the stories. And, we go over a couple of them. When you start building out stuff in UFOs and you start seeing the anomalies around it, what happens when they say, well, this thing went over by a cornfield into the woods right here and it sat down, and on the ground there was an unusual form of radiation under it once it left. It was there for 3 days, and the radiation basically come out and killed everything, and then a while later everything was overgrown. Can you account for why that happens? Well, yes, we can. You see, the radiant energy, when you build it out, it's not exactly radiation, and you can put that into your water system depending on how you make it and how much energy you put into it, it could be a very good thing. It'll build out your plants 4 times as fast. It'll absolutely go out and clean up the environment. It'll allow the water table to be energized. That's how Tesla did it when he went to Warncliffe. He energized the water table, and then he's able to light up light bulbs anywhere because the water table becomes a conduit of energy that's high voltage. It just shoots everywhere, and it'll light up light bulbs as soon as it touches the ground. I've done the experiment, and it absolutely does work. When you see those kind of anomalies and you put it together and you build out the structure that will actually create that energy, you see we're one step closer to the UFO technology. When you understand what a field bubble does to the environment, we take the 3M experiment. They basically had a bad motor that went on in their line, and they created a ton of static electricity around it. Understand it's a cold warehouse. People misunderstand the physics of this. They think that they need to create a hot, muggy zone. They don't. They need to create the cold warehouse it was in. Why? Because the temperature differential matters. Once they did that, the static electricity in the air was thicker. Why? Because it was heated and it was being compressed by the cold environment around it. It wouldn't allow it to go any further, so it would just build up in there. They never turned the power off. So just think about it. You got a hose that's going everywhere, and you got a bubble you're feeling. What's going to happen? The energy is going to get in there and get really dense. What happens? You can't walk through it. You start to try, and you get stuck. What are they telling you? When the amount of energy like that gets thick enough, nothing's penetrating it. It's creating that sheath layer on the outside. It's starting to put a layer in between. The misunderstanding is everybody thinks you need a hot, muggy environment because that's the way the static electricity builds out. But that was already created by the motor that was messing up on you. You didn't need to recreate that. You needed to find the environment where the warehouse is. You see, warehouses are built out of concrete. All these days, all the warehouses are concrete. It is freezing cold in there. I can tell you from working in one, man, it's freezing cold. You have the freezing cold going in a layer of heat. We've all seen this in our homes on a cold day. It's that environmental condition that they didn't account for. That's why their experiment fails. But it's absolutely why this field builds out the way it does. It takes in the environmental condition of what's going on. It's one of the most misunderstood things that goes on. We have coil structures that will pull in the energy from the environment because it's playing with the temperature in the room. It's trying to make it colder because there's no heat in it. They're trying to pull in anything it can. Think about that. If there's no heat in your coil and you're producing energy inside of it, what is it going to do? It's going to try to make capacitance out of the air, but because you have a rotational value that goes on in your coil, now it pulls back into the center. Now the center changes it. What happens when you put multiple layers of it? Multiple layers of capacitance inside of it holds, goes, goes back around and does it again. It makes superconductivity if you can get it to ice over. You see, you never had to add anything cold to it. It automatically does it on its own. It's one of those things that people always look for, and they don't understand why you get there. Why every single time you look at a circuit that they say is an over unity circuit, there's no resistor in it. There's spark gaps in it, but there's no resistor in it. There's a bunch of coils. What did they understand that you didn't? They understood resonance. Resonance amplifies everything. As long as they're in the same resonance value within a quarter or half wave of each other, they do it by harmonics. There's a way to structure energy, and that absolutely works. You can run coils backwards. What does it do? If you've ever seen a DC high voltage spark, it sparks across, and it's a beautiful purple color. Okay. And then if you add more amperage to it, it gets more white and it has a fluffy look to it. What happens when you run something reverse on a coil to that on the inside of it? It starts shooting off like it's a voltage multiplier, and you just put 20 kV into it. It'll start shooting at distances. Now, based on the air around it and how long of a field it is, gives you a nice lightning bolt. It'll be consistent right around here all the time. Zap, 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 zap. What do people not really understand? That the air itself is going to hold capacitance for you. So what will happen in when it's too far apart, it'll build, 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 and then boom, it'll strike off. Just like lightning. It's working on the same principle. It's the air around it that's creating the capacitance. That's why they call a Tesla coil capacitance to ground, because the air itself is capacitance. So when you think about a coil structure and how they build out and how they build more energy, it is literally capacitance of the air that's doing it. Now think about that. I'm telling you about a zone that goes around a UFO craft. I'm telling you that I'm using the air as capacitance. I'm using it all day long. I'm using the air inside the craft, outside of it, everywhere. It's capacitance to me. It is now part of everything. Once you see that in high voltage, you should understand it. What do the clouds do? They hold in water. What happens when you put high voltage to water? See, high voltage works on a different understanding than regular voltage does. It'll actually create capacitance in the water. Now you've taken the energy that's up here, brought it down to a cloud layer right here. Now my anode cathode effect is based on where my cloud layer is to the ground. Now I have a shorter distance. What's going to happen? It's going to build, 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 and discharge. It'll build, 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 and discharge, right? That's what's going to happen to you in that environment. You have to be able to make that zone on the outside of it. When you make that sheath zone, what you're going to do is stop that from happening to your craft. Otherwise, it's going to happen all day long because you'll become the screwdriver in the middle of the high voltage. It'll zap right through you. The way you have to stop it is to create that sheath zone. That zone that does not let the energy escape. Now you have no problem. You have no problem pulling it in. When you get to the upper atmosphere, your craft will become over unity all day long. Otis T. Carr knew this when he told you about it in all the old interviews. He said it was over unity. Why? Because it works on the same energy from the environment. Everybody thinks you need to convert to AC/DC. Well, that's a lie. You don't need to. You just don't. You could take the end of your Tesla coil right now, okay? And I can connect it right to or I shouldn't say the end of your Tesla coil. I put a wire down the center of my Tesla coil, and I'll run it right over to a MOSFET or a transistor, and I can pulse that transistor no problem. Why? Because I'm taking negative energy from the center of my coil. I'm saturating that transistor, and I can make it oscillate a whole other Tesla coil if I wanted to. I can run any system I want. I could turn it on and off based on the pulse of my coil. That's an understanding most people don't have. But now you should. If you're listening, you should have that understanding now. You could literally create pulses in anything that you want after that. You're using a different form of energy. When you use a different form of energy, different environmental conditions become available to you. If you're in that impulse area, you pull in energy. I'll tell you a simple thing that Sean did on this channel. And he used the impulse of the center of one of his geometry coils. What happened? The ground itself shot towards the coil. And you go, well, that shouldn't be possible. Usually the ground grounds it out. You know what I mean? But in all Tesla coils, they're a pump. You see, you have no energy in a Tesla coil without grounding it. Unless it's in a Slayer exciter, then it does. But in a ZVS, you don't. It has to be grounded. It was telling you something different. It was telling you, hey, there's an energy source down there that we need. We need to pull something from it. You could say it's stripping electrons off of it. Anything you like that, it probably is. You're pulling in energy from the ground. it's now shooting towards the coil. And it didn't just shoot a little bit. We're talking sparks this big. What does that mean? That means if you put a capacitor in between that, you could have been filling up capacitors all day long and then shooting the rest of the spark to the coil because it's always pulling. It's always pumping it in, pumping it in. That's the difference in it. This energy is different. I'd like to call it an impulse rather than negative energy, to be very honest with you, because it's more apt with the description of what's going on. It's more of a suction into the null zone than it is anything else. We create these devices to understand this because we want to go further into our technology. Every time we do this, we get a little closer. There's not a lot of people out there that'll tell you about the environmental conditions. A lot of people just avoid it. They don't understand it. They don't understand the temperature differential that it'll create. They don't understand that there's another zone in there. They just write it off as RF because that's the way physics sees it. When they realize it's there, now they start to use it, it gives them a new mathematical calculation to put into everything, which is a very nice thing because there's a lot of things out there. If you watch Eric Weinstein, he's flipping over how do I say this? He's taking a fraction and flipping it in order to cancel things out when there was no reason to do it. Because the experiment didn't tell you it needed that. But why did he do it? Because math dictates that in order to get his equalization, x has to equal something in algebra, that he needed that. But it also corresponds to the experiment. Why? Because the experiment needed it. There was an impulse zone in there that they didn't have the math for to calculate that equation correctly. But we found it. We know where it is. We know what's going on in it. That's the other side that I hope that they truly, sincerely learn so their math makes a lot more sense. I'm not against anybody in physics. I want to see all of them succeed. And if I can help them do it by showing them a coil or something, I think there's a lot of people around me that feel the same way. Just show it to them. Show them there's something different, man. We want to get further in this culture. We want to evolve. The only way you do it is do it together. There's a lot of new people out there listening. For those of you who don't know, I experiment all the time. I have the name Old Man Builds, OMB, for a very particular reason. If there's something in a coil system, I build it. If there's something out there in the plasma, I build it. I'm a master of high voltage. There is not one thing you put in front of me and show me I couldn't do. And do them all. I build out coils and stuff like that, and I try to master every single one of them, and I show everybody exactly how they're built. I don't hold back. I go step by step. I will show you everything so you have a beautiful coil, beautiful system. I won't lie to you. I just don't see the effort in it. I don't have a dog in the race to lie to people. I just don't. Things are what they are. I want you to test them. I want you to show yourself what they are. There's a lot of people who build my stuff and replicate it, and they come back with the same answers that I gave. And nothing satisfies me more than that. I think some people get lost in that. They want to hide all their stuff. I have no reason to hide it. Unless it's going to become something that is harmful to my family and will hurt them, I'll let it out. Something that the country will catch me for and not allow me to stay, out here to help you guys, then I can't show that. But everything else I show. So for those of you just tuning in, understand everything comes from experience and building things out. I know this stuff because I built it. I built that field that goes around that craft over a year ago. And I did some things in there, man, that most people think it would be impossible. But they work. And I demonstrate them that they work. So have we got to the full, everything yet on anti-gravity? Not yet. Some of the things in there, man, are advanced for a reason. And we're almost there. I got my little, my little gravity fly or something that makes everybody makes fun of. Well, mine hops off the ground. and it does it without strings. So when I see somebody else's do that, then we'll talk. But anyway, I'll get off of that. Get back to the thing going through our solar system. You see, we have a crowd control device, and just so you understand how this works, you're dealing with the resonance of everything around you. So I know the government understands this, okay? You have frequencies in your body. We're starting to learn this in the medical field, but you have frequencies that go on in there. You have a energy structure in your body. I think everybody's pretty much aware of that and okay with that and understanding that there's a form of electricity in your body. Most people just think it's in the brain. It actually goes out through your entire body, and your body has capacitance that'll mess with coils and anything that you're in the vicinity of. So what is the crowd control device? It goes in there and messes with your DNA. Now, they won't like me saying this, but it's an absolute fact. It's what messes with you. You want to get in the old school biblical. You're talking Ark of the Covenant. Why? Because the stories about the Ark, when you think about it, radiation, things like that, what acts like radiation? Resonance. Resonance absolutely acts like that. If it's doing the frequency that's inside your body's going to feel like it's on fire. You will run the other way 100%. You'll clear out that crowd in no time. So what happens when you take that understanding and you take the understanding of a laser? What if you just wanted to create a nitrogen laser? What do? You use the Kashmir effect in order to create the energy to get it to swirl. Energy itself, the high voltage will put off gas. It'll put off O3. There's no question about that. You're not taking it and swirling, so you're creating a laser. What happens when you take coherent fields of plasma and puts them in with the laser using that same resonance field? I won't tell you the exact way to do it. I will say this. You are making a phaser. You are taking something that takes the molecules of your body and absolutely destroys them. You're taking a laser that goes directly out. And the laser is the least of your worries in that system. Let me just tell you that. You want something that takes apart matter piece by piece by piece. You must have coherent plasma radiant fields coming out of this. We have it. If we needed to take something out, if it was up in space, I don't know that it's so great to go through our atmosphere, but if we had it up there, we have it. Something like that comes to our planet, we can absolutely take it out. Once you understand that everything is energy that is matter, and that you understand you could do an energy to matter conversion, you can break apart matter. You can separate the atoms themselves. Why is it coming up? When we build the RAV out, we build out a stream of plasma, and it looks like a little stream. I mean, it's about this long, okay? And what does it look like? Molten steel. It looks like molten steel when it builds out, okay? What is that? That's the area where plasma is trying to self-structure into a solid state. What does it need? Rapid cooling. That's all that it needs. Rapid cooling, and you would have a solid state that came out of plasma. You'd have energy to matter conversion. They know what happens in physics. They already have formulas for it. It's rare to see it come out, but it takes cold plasma to do it. We absolutely are building that in the RAV. It's not hot enough to be hot plasma in the way they classify it. It still has a high temperature to a human being, but not anywhere close to where it should be. It's why this state occurs in it. When you can build out matter from it, you start to understand How do I deconstruct it on the back end? If I can create matter, how do I separate matter? What are atoms? To us, atoms, when we look at them in an electron microscope, they're basically little shells, and the little shells that stick together. Once the shells are stuck together, it builds out a form. That's pretty simple. We can see that in an electron microscope. What does that mean? It means that there was a plasma structure there that built out to actual solid state plasma. It made a shell. There's energy still going on inside. It's just built out into a shell. Well, what happens when you put multiple things together? It's like sticking magnets together. They just stick together, but they're not working on magnetism. See, that's the thing. They work on a whole different scale because the resonance is still going on, because there's still rotational energy going on there. That energy coincides to the next one. This one now coincides with this one. Now they cross like this, and they start building out, right? Well, that keeps going to the next one, next one, next one, and they all adhere together based on the resonance value of them. So how do you break them apart? You have to use resonance to do it. Now, here's where you see it in nature. Bridges sway out of control when they hit a resonance value. They absolutely will self-destruct. What happens when you see a sign that says no horses on a bridge? Why? Because of the resonance between them. They absolutely destroy matter. Why? Because they're tearing it apart. They've identified a frequency in the resonance that structure cannot hold together in. Once you understand that, you start to understand a little bit of anti-gravity. When they hold together, they become dense. When they become dense, they get stuck to the earth better. When they're no longer dense and they're pulled apart, they no longer have the hold of gravity the way that they did. That in itself will lighten huge boulders. Big things of granite will lighten. Why? Because you found the resonance of whatever material you had. It now gets in, instead of being in coherence with the one next to it and bonding, now you're pulling them apart. But you're not breaking them. If you broke them, you'd have a whole big problem on your hands. You'd be creating nuclear reactions. You're not doing that. You're just pulling them apart. You're pulling them apart slightly. Why? Because the density of an object is different than the weight of the object. You're pulling away the density of it. The density is what holds you to the ground in the vacuum. Once you create the state where it's less dense, guess what happens? It has less hold on it. Think about that. It's not out of the realm of anything because you saw it happen. You saw the bridge go out of control. You got told the reason. They found the resonance frequency of the bridge and the bridge went out of control. Tesla almost destroyed the whole area around him because he hit the resonance value of the iron itself. It was pulling it apart at the seams. John Hutchinson put resonance right in the dead center of a piece of metal. It tore it apart. It shredded the metal. Why? Because once you hit resonance inside of an item, you're compressing that resonance inside. Like I told you before, resonance itself will create not the radiant, but the actual radiation inside of it. And it was tearing metal apart. He put a node right in the center of that thing because it resonated at the exact same frequency of what he had. When you do that, it puts a node in and it sucks in the energy and then it pours out radiation and it rips metal apart. It's the same thing as the bridge. It's working the same way. We've already figured this out. You want to know how they moved stuff in Egypt? Because they lightened it. It may not have been anti-gravity. They could walk around pushing rocks and floating in air, but they lightened it. They used the resonance of it to lighten it so that they can move it. To them, that thing didn't weigh what it weighs to us because they changed the density of it. It's an absolute fact of how this stuff works. That's why they don't allow horses on certain bridges. That's why they don't allow people to march across certain bridges. That's why they build them completely out of frequency, and they have to take that into account when they're doing the building of it. It's a fact that it happens. Now that you understand that, now you can understand things a little bit better. Why is nature telling us this? It's not lying to you, it's just telling you it's doing it. It's saying, hey, hello, I'm here. I'm absolutely changing the environmental conditions around you by doing this. Now you can understand it a little better. You understand what resonance does. It seems like a weak force. Magnetism in magnets seems like a weak force. Static electricity seems like a weak force. You combine three weak forces to make one strong force, which is gravity. We already know that. We already know it. They try to tell you that gravitation is a force unto itself. It's not, it's an effect of the three other forces. There's a radiant value to everything, how far it builds out. That's 100% fact. That comes into any consideration of any system. I've been building this stuff for a long time. The earth acts like a DC field. It really does. It acts just like DC energy going through. What's the problem with it? Is it wasn't built out of DC. It's a crystal-based structure, the best oscillator in the world. Why do we have Timex watches? What did they originally put in there? Crystals. Why? Tap it, taps back, tap it, taps back. It's the perfect oscillator. It puts out energy once you start tapping it. You tap it long enough, you get energy. You don't have to smack it real hard. It's a continuously tapping of it. You could go over and take a piezoelectric disc, take your frequency generator and run through it and scroll through it, find the frequency of that crystal, it'll run all over the place. It'll hop all over your table. Put the crystal in water when you do it. What happens? The energy builds out to the water. Water is the perfect conduit of energy for it. It goes right through the water. It starts structuring the water, and you can pull out energy all day long from it. You don't want to put things to the sides of it because it won't pull out the energy properly. You need 360 degrees of water to pull it out. That's what you want. We had Merkaba on the show when we first started, and he builds a device that deals with points of sound. Okay, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and he built them out, right? This machine is amazing. He has a little ball, a magnetism ball, it sits in the center, right? And he spins it at a high RPM. Each time he turns on one of these, okay, all the way around it, 360 degrees, it makes it move. You see, he was teaching you something and how it works. He said the energy when it came together and that they did AI on it, it built out to be a Merkaba, a geometrical structure that we know. Well, it also holds energy. And it also shows you exactly how things are done when in resonance. So he could take a crystal and put it in the center of there, build out the frequencies on each side of it, and put them in resonance. You see, we're missing a little something here. You guys all think that when you have a speaker underneath a plate and you turn it on, that that's the only structure going on. Well, that's a frequency. It's not resonance. Put a speaker above it. It requires two. Why did they build the EDM machine? Or, excuse me, I think it's MHD. Anyway, it's the machine that puts on both sides of you, okay, with scalar. And what is it trying to do? There's two different coils. They're both in a different frequency, and they're trying to put the node inside of you, okay, but in a beat frequency. See, it changes how the machine works. You think it's just based on resonance. It's not. It's based on the beat frequency between them. And they're trying to get that wide because as your Tesla coils are in the high kilohertz, the beat frequency is in the low hertz. Think about that. Why would they want something in a low hertz instead of high hertz or high kilohertz? Because your body is in hertz. That's why. The frequencies in your body are in hertz. They're trying to affect that. That's why they do it that way. They're looking for a beat frequency. This is in physics as well. The beat frequency all day is in physics. You could take a crystal cylinder and you could put fire inside of it at a certain level, then it'll come out and start to resonate. You could do the same thing with a shorter one and turn it on its side, it'll resonate. And then what happens is they build up a beat frequency between them. This is the via mana. It's exactly what it does. That's why there's 4 pipes on it, too short, too long. There's a beat frequency going on between all of it. It's a low hertz level. Low hertz is the way to go for that stuff. We don't want to be in kilohertz when we deal with stuff like that. You want to be in low hertz. There's commonality throughout everything if you really look at it and you understand why they're trying to do it. I can't directly tell you exactly how these things work because YouTube won't let me, but it absolutely does work. There are ways that it works even better. And surprisingly enough, it goes right to the history that you were told. And it just was missing one aspect of it. We get to Egypt and it works the same way. The energy they had there, just so you know, they have the Blue Lotus out there. What happens in that in the olden times is they had energy that went into the water, and it was radiant energy that went into the water. It went to the entire water table. And what does it do? It creates a different protein spike in the Blue Lotus. Why does it do that? Because the energy itself was making it grow faster, but it also gave it a spike. So you would find it in the tombs where that energy, that spike was there. And then nowadays it's not. What was the difference? They were running on a different type of energy. You see, there's a big misconception about how the pyramid actually works. They think it's an energy generator shooting energy to the sky. That's a misunderstanding. It's pulling the energy from the sky. The sky doesn't need any more energy. There's a ton of it up there. There's a ton of high voltage potential up there all day long. It was pulling it down to the earth. Think about that. What is the one thing that you smell on a nice spring day? O3. Kind of odd, isn't it? It's put off by everything around you, but that's what it is. So what happens when you start pulling it down in heavy amounts from the sky when you're pulling the energy from it and getting it into the water table? Well, now you have a high voltage potential radiant energy that Tesla used up in Wardenclyffe in order to put it into the water table in order to energize everything. It makes it very clear on how things work. We actually built out energy back in the day that way. You're pulling it out of the atmosphere. Why did they shut down Wardenclyffe? Because it did the same thing. Yeah, you can use it as a transmission tower, but you didn't have to. You didn't have to. It pulls in the energy from the environment, brings it down, and then at that point, you can actually put the energy anywhere you wanted to. So what happens? You could take the Eiffel Tower, you could have taken Wardenclyffe, put the energy into the water table, and you would have energy over a good portion of the earth. You get a couple more zones like that, and you got it everywhere. But what are we finding with pyramids? That they're everywhere. That one thing will change this planet and terraform it in no time flat. You could take a dead planet that looks like Mars and terraform it by doing this. it builds up, the water comes to the surface in a pyramid. I'm sure a lot of people heard this story, but they didn't understand why. You create a vacuum in the center of this thing. What does it do? You see, you got pressure coming from the top that pulls down the energy from the sky, but the inside creates a vacuum. When you create a vacuum, water starts to fill up inside of it. So, what happens if you put it all over Mars? Well, now you're getting a higher amount of value in the sky because it now has a point to go back into. But now the water comes up to the level now where you can use it. What does it need? It needs a moon. It just needs that moon to pull it and push it, pull it and push it. It needs that level to pull it and push it. That's the only thing it's missing besides that. You could terraform Mars. You don't have to set off nuclear weapons on the ice cap. You don't have to do stupid things. You don't have to put a bunch of smog in the air. You simply have to understand the physics of it. What you do, you're set. This stuff is pretty much well known where I come from. In the stuff that we build, we pretty much well know it. And we know what's going on. We know how it builds out. We've seen it. I can right now take my Tesla coil that's sitting right behind me, put a rod down the center, put it right into the water. And I can run a super high voltage in there and put my hands right into it. No effects whatsoever. I can put the wire down the center and run it into mud. I will make that mud conductive at 3 feet away to a fluorescent bulb. No problem whatsoever. Could do it all day long. I could put it into a jar, just a little ball jar, okay, used for pickling stuff. And I can get 3 to 4 feet of energy coming off of that. The energy can sit in that water because it's an impulse, not a pulse. Pulse structures, impulse deconstructs. It allows things to open up and flow better. That's why it works that way. I've done a lot of tests on my channel to show you guys this. We could put it into mud. Okay, when you put it into the mud, okay, this is the hilarious thing. I literally just connected a fluorescent light bulb to a plug. And I plugged it right into the mud. And it turned on beautifully. Not a problem. If I ran this stuff in the water table near you, guess what would happen? You could literally take a plug to a light bulb and put it in the ground with zero circuitry. And it'd turn on. That's pretty impressive. That's technology done right. We don't need all these things around us like we're building out. We're not in harmony with nature at all. There's a way to be in harmony with nature and actually pull this stuff off. On my channel, I show it. One other way that you can, I should say this in a speculative fashion so that you guys don't get in trouble. When you put something in the mud, it grounds out the energy to the mud, but leaves the frequency. You want to take a mud bath? Well, it gives you a little something. If you understand what I'm trying to tell you. It's a different way of looking at it, but it absolutely does work. You ground out the energy so it's non-harmful. You get the frequency. It goes right through your pores. You can't avoid it. I know I couldn't. Some of this stuff, man, we got to learn a little better. They talk about structured water and deconstructed water and things like that. That's a whole new concept for people. People thought, we'll just put energy in water and we'll die. And well, it depends on the frequency of the energy and how you run it is really what that answer is. AC is the absolute most destructive thing on the planet. There's no question about that. If you run things in a DC fashion, it changes a little bit. And it changes for the better. AC absolutely kills everything. Absolutely does. Not good for you at all. Nothing but destruction. But it doesn't mean you still can't use it in your fields later if you convert it right at the end. DC fields are the way to go. if you can get oscillation out of crystals, it's even better. And one thing you have to worry about crystals is they work at the same level your body does. So the frequencies that goes on there goes on in those things. So just understand this. When you take your crystal at home and you put it in water, check it. Go over and take your multimeter, put it in milliamps, and check it. Okay? Just saying, you might find something interesting. I know certain things that are crystal structures that you could break up and put it in there, and it'll absolutely give you a voltage, an amperage, and a frequency. We could do it with salt all day long. You say, well, we make a salt with battery, so we should understand crystalline structure does that. But it does it in bigger crystals as well. It's nature's way of building out energy. That's why they always tell you about them. Frequency over time, frequency over distance. Two of the most understood things really ever, but you need to know both when dealing with this type of energy and how they work. Anti-gravity fields are easy once you learn them. The hardest thing is vector direction. That's the hardest part. You can have something that could be an anti-gravity sitting right in front of you. If you don't have your vector direction right, you'll never get it to move. I've dealt with that one quite a bit. You have to create them separate. And everything has a multi-use in a anti-gravity field or gravity field. Everything has a multi-use. So it always goes for one or more things that you're doing. You have to create mechanical resonance. You have to create electrical resonance. You have to create the plasma flow resonance. When you do, you have a superconductor, but it has to be in aluminum, not in copper, not in steel, aluminum. Once you understand that, you understand superconductivity. If it lowers the temperature in your system, you know you have it. And why? Because it's trying to pull in the environment. And anytime, even if it's hot outside, it's like a fan. It has a natural cooling effect. So think about it. If you're pushing things through a system, to the center, it's cooling it down. You know, there's a device we don't talk about a whole lot in here, and it's a serial device. I always call it cereal. I know that's not the name, okay? But the surreal, I want to call it surreal. I know I'm messing up the name. What is it showing and what are they not noticing? It's showing you in your temperature differential that it's building out different temperatures and layers. It's telling you that. They've seen it. They put it on camera. What do they not realize? There's a resonance to each layer. You see, it's basically an electromagnet, but they have to build out each layer in the correct resonance frequency, which means the rotational value and how fast it rotates matters. And it doesn't just build out in one. It has to build out in threes. It has to have 3 layers to it. You build it out in 1, you're not going to see the effect. You build it out in 2, you'll start to see the effect. Build it out in 3, you have the effect. That device, you can see it very clearly. If you look at the RAB and the temperature we're doing in that, it's directly correlated to how that thing works. There is a certain way that everything responds in nature where we live to work that way. I absolutely believe it'll be an over unity device when they do that. When they realize it's frequency that they're creating around it, when they realize the layers are in temperature as well, they coincide together, they'll start to get an effect. Now, what would I suggest they do? You take the center of it and cut it out. Don't connect your motor there. Connect your motors to the ring on the inside, cut a hole in the center. Allow the temperature of the air to get around it. Allow it to flow freely. I think what you'll find is something very important because now you just added capacitance in the air to your whole equation. You were resisting it before by keeping it closed. You open it up, now you're going to get the capacitance of air to work with you in that device. We could look at Edwin Gray. Edwin Gray is a fascinating one where he's running an electric motor. How did he convert the energy? Well, I did it on my channel for you. I showed you. I basically took a Tesla coil and I took another Tesla coil and it's counter wound on the inside. And what it does when you put high voltage through the outside Tesla coil, see, that's something different, right? You put high voltage through it instead of your normal Tesla coil stuff. Just take a DC flyback and connect the positive side to it. Take the inside and put it to the negative side. Now you have a high voltage field in between, right? But remember what I said when you start building out things in impulse. Right there, you start to change it. But now turn on your Tesla coil next to it. What happens? The frequency of the DC flyback turns into the frequency of the Tesla coil. They match each other and become resonant to each other. It changed your whole system and it converted you from DC and high voltage to a very high AC. Simple conversion. How do you do aluminum and make it where it lifts? You have to use AC. AC in a coil lifts aluminum. Why would you want to put it in a system that has a bunch of aluminum? You're looking for superconductivity. You're going to need the AC at the last minute. You're still going to need the DC fields to build out, but you also must build that AC field. I don't think Jack understood that or had that in his paperwork for when he did the math, but it's an absolute fact. So, so yes, I have made the RAV and done it with multiple cameras at once, and all of the effects that go on with the camera are with the camera. That's a fact. That's why when we're doing the presentation on it coming up, we're going to show the temperature differential. We're going to show the resonance. We're going to show all the different frequencies going on in it. And we're going to leave a lot of the camera effects out because last time Bob came and said hi to us on our channel, we ate a big poo sandwich in the fact that that's all we were talking about. And I do not plan to do that ever again. So just so we all understand that, I do not like to be, I felt shamed when we did it. And I know Joe felt the same way. It negates the good work that's being done on the rest of it. And I don't need anything negating that. It works. It's one of the very few structures that are going to build out to be a plasma ball, to build out to be that ball lightning everybody wants. Because I found something very interesting that nobody else went to look for. You see, we're in right around 90 kilohertz or 94. When I built it out using my bipolar Tesla coil, I did it around 250. So it went from a resonant zone to a non-resonant zone where the thing wouldn't spark and start to another resonant zone. But it got bigger. It doubled in size almost. Understand this. I'm going to put the frequency even higher and get it to go higher. I'll build another coil. That's not a problem. We're hitting a different zone that goes on there. Now we can build these things out bigger. We could take the amplification up because I'll just put a Slayer exciter on it instead of using a ZVS. I'll get that thing to go its max amplification. I build a monster Slayer exciter circuit. So we're going to show what this thing can do. And I was talking to Joe earlier. I says, we just need to build a structure around it in order to pull the energy out. That's it. We know how to do it. We can build a spherical Tesla coil with the exact frequency that goes on in the RAV. I pulled the energy right out of it. I had no problem doing it. We could pull the heat out of it as well, although it's a fairly cold plasma. I don't know that we're going to get a lot until we compress it. Oh, and then we're going to have some fun. You see, when you do a bipolar Tesla coil on it, you get the magnetism on the inside, okay, for the impulse, but you also get the frequency on the outside in order to get the resonance to amplify the resonance of each one of the rings of plasma. It's a dual effect. So we should be hitting a home run with that thing. Yeah, I'll close out the show on this, guys. That thing that's coming through our solar system, I really do think that it's not going to hit Mars. I think it'll come close and we'll all just like, sigh of relief. I think that there's something bigger coming our way and we should be looking for it. I'm not doomsdaying it. I'm just saying that once you start seeing a consistent pattern of things coming through, look for the next 10 years or 15 years, we'll get another one. And that seems to be at the rate that they're going. Now, heaven forbid there's a big flurry. I do not think it's an alien ship. People have rumors about Planet X. Planet X could be absolutely a thing. Do I think it's going to roam through our solar system? Probably not. I think it's a misunderstood story of how Planet X is. It's probably something that could be the size of a planetary body or a moon that'll fly through our solar system, kind of like this thing that we're dealing with now. I see that happening. I absolutely see that happening. I think it's going to mess with all the frequencies and everything all over the place. It's going to mess with planetary bodies hard. I'm hoping we're not in the path of anything like it, but yeah, whatever broke through that layer that's on the outside, it's already done it. Let's just be very clear. We have layers that are going on a broken rock that go around there, but when you get further out, and we haven't even gotten Voyager out to that limit yet, there's a giant field of asteroids out there. And when we get across the wrong one that hits one of those, man, we're going to get some stuff flying. The way the Oort cloud or whatever they called it, we're going to get massive amounts of stuff coming at it because it's spherical. It's not on the same layer like some of these things are because they built out from the sun. They're on that layer. This thing's spherical, man. It's got a lot of debris out there. And some of it just could be an accumulation of everything as we go around our, we go around our universe. I don't doubt that. Not one bit. Yeah, we're going to be getting a lot of stuff, man. I think some of the cool things is what we learned from this. I mean, if you realize that we're going around our, if you really realize this, okay, just understand this. If you realize that we're not stagnant in where we are and that we're going around, okay, just think about this. If you're going around, that means other systems are going around as well. They go at different times. So where they intersect to where we are may shorten the distance between solar systems. They always ask the question, are we in expanse right now or are we in contraction in our universe? And the answer is both. We are in a continuous state of expanse and retraction. But we can also be close to other solar systems, closer than we know. And it comes down to time dilation. They always want to talk about space-time. It's time dilation you have to worry about. We dilate time in our solar system. We do it on every planet that we're on. But that also means that every single planet and every single solar system out there beyond us does the same thing. We're not looking at light the proper way. We think it's a speed. It's not that way. There's energy that you can get the speed of, not light. but energy is consistently everywhere. I think very clearly we're going to run into a situation here where we can get to some of these other things and they're going to sneak up on us. And they're just going to tell us, no, no, we calculated it. No, you didn't. They're sneaking up on you. There's going to be zones where other solar systems are closer to ours. And that's what's going to affect it. Are we in one of those things now? I don't know. Yeah. Every 15 to 20 years, you're absolutely right. From this point on, and it could be sooner than that. There's going to be another one and another one. Huh. Yeah. Oh, Bob is. I won't lie to you. Bob is 100% expert in his field. That's 100% fact. There's no getting around that. No getting around it whatsoever. Bob is an expert in his field. I was honored the fact that he came and watched our show. I was disappointed that we couldn't show him more. So we'll have to figure that one out and see if we can't, do that again. Anyway, yeah, when we get to some of this planetary object stuff, man, I think we need to relook at the biblical stories and all the stories that go down in cuneiform and really look at them again. And if we find out that there's something that's a planetary size coming through, when there's other things that came through our universe already, or excuse me, our solar system already, we need to start looking at it because they may have a roadmap for the future. Because it's not something that it's not something that we should just walk away from because it's been telling us this again and again and again. They've been telling us to look for it. The one thing they create is a calendar that says when the end of time is. Was that the Great Restart? They go and tell you on the pyramidium that there's something coming through and this is what it looks like. The Black Pyramidum in Egypt. Okay, it's basically a little pyramid that sits in their museum. On the front's got this nice, feathered structure, but on the right side of it, it absolutely has one of these structures on there. They knew it was coming. We have everywhere where they built things in where you could see anytime the moon goes into a solar eclipse, it's everywhere. Why would they do this? Why would they consistently tell us all the time to look up at it? What is going on there? Well, we're finding out. We effed around. Now we're finding out. We're running right through it, man, and we need to realize that we're going right through it. Once we do, how do we fix it? I think that's a bigger thing. We know it's coming. I hope Space Force gets up and active and awesomely goes, right now, and we get it. It concerns me, man, that we don't. What's up, Brandon? See Brandon here after a while, man. We've been about building out that little cool house, the geometry place, man. I think it was totally awesome that he built that out. I saw him finishing that thing, man, on the Facebook. Thing's totally awesome. So, yeah, right on, man. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, man, we could do absolutely right now. There's a lot of technique to it. If you wanted to learn, I'd be absolutely happy to show you. Just ask, and we'll build it out on the channel if we can. There's a lot of things I'm still building out, and they're turning out cool, man. We're gonna have I want to say this. We're working on the other channel on geometry and coils, and I've been working on the rodent coil over there. About to get in another 10 pounds of wire, and we'll start building coils on that channel, that second channel. Some more, keep testing them. I can tell you, in building the rodent coil, it has an absolutely poor ability to run a motor. It really is. It needs something different. We build Tesla coils on this channel all the time, man. I build them, I sell them. You probably notice under the screen is probably a list of coils or something. All of them are beautiful. All of them work, man. And you can ask some of the people on the channel, man. They all use them. They're awesome. I learned the secret of how to build a ZVS Tesla coil, and it's perfected along with a Slayer exciter. The only problem is you got to keep the circuits kind of away from it sometimes because it'll try to resonate everything in the room, and it's on purpose. I'm not going to choke it. That's what normally, like if you're talking to Dollar to tell you, hey, go out and choke that thing and make it so it doesn't resonate everywhere. Well, guess what? You won't be able to put the rod down the center of the water table if you choke it. It won't work right. So no chance I'm fixing that. Those coils are beautiful, man. You can see right behind me my rodent coil and my Tesla coil, and I've got a whole table full of coils. So it's pretty awesome, man. I'll show everybody. Let's see. While we're here, there's a lot of people in here. We were wondering what the RAV is, and let's see if I could just pull out a quick picture. Now, when you look at this, what you see is you see it actually building out into a spherical form in plasma. And there's a camera effect behind it. There's no question that's what it is. But when we put it out in temperature, it shows the same thing as the camera effect. Same fields, same sizes, same everything. It builds out in heat. Now, do we have the heat correct on it? We have measured heat from the clay itself that it sits on and which fields that it builds out in. What we do not have is an active event when it's working. The thermal camera, it's high in heat when it's working. The thermal camera shuts down. It doesn't want to work. So we need to figure out a way to get the actual temperature of it while it's running, because Joe and I both suspect that it's much higher than what it is. But in the presentation, we can't put it out any more than what we can say that we know. So, all right, we'll just take a look real quick at a couple more. Let's see if I can't just find it for you.
Yeah.
This is Joe putting it into this piece of quartz. And what you see is what you normally see with high voltage right here. You see the outside, you see that it's lighting up the outside pretty good. All the energy is going around it. And then you start to get to see this. It's starting to penetrate the inside of it. You notice the color itself changed the whole structure of what it's doing. Look at the brightness of that. That thing is inside of it. And it just can't take it anymore. And for good measure, Joe destroyed the whole thing. But I just wanted to take into account what it's doing here. If it was just the outside, you'd see a little bit of light up. And we saw that right here. That's what happens when you put light around it. This is the stuff that happens when you put the actual RAV inside the center of it. It builds out in a beautiful display of energy. And then I'll show you guys, and then it'll be the last one. Let me see which one I want to show. I built out the RAV. Oh, if I can find it here real quick. Come on. I took the cathode and make it a second anode. You see the amount of light coming off of this thing. This is a massive amount of energy that's popping through here. This is not a normal spark gap or something like that. You never get that type of energy out of it. This right here deserves to be in a chamber collecting the energy from it. So why is it building out with, instead of an anode and a cathode, and it's just building out two of them? So let's just put it this way. What's actually going on here is it's transmutating the actual clay that's on the surface. And when it does that, it's making basically a carbon structure out of it. Now, could you say it's a plasma constructing it? Sure, you can. Can you say it's transmutating? Sure, you can. Until we get it tested and find out what it actually is, those things are up in the air. What I do know is it creates a cathode at the bottom for this to work. So as soon as you turn it on and get it running, you no longer need the cathode. So what you're seeing right here is out of the same power source, okay, the same energy source, you get two anodes. When you get two anodes, you can run them together. Same clay, different clay, doesn't matter. You can run two of them out of it. So if I had 4 available, I can run 4 out of it. You see, there's all kinds of different possibilities that goes on here because it threw out your conventional understanding of an anode and cathode because it builds its own. I believe the structure is a carbon or a carbon based, and it makes a chamber inside of it. And what does that look like? It looks like Swiss cheese, like a mountain with Swiss cheese. And what's happening is it's resonating in there the same frequency as the anode. So it's bouncing back to it and giving it the resonance for the RAV to build. Now we can build out multiple ones in the same area. You see the one on the right's much bigger. Why? Because it's adding energy from the one on the left. It's pushing it back through the system, and it's showing it's coming out on the other side. They're all the same frequency, but the amplitude on the one on the right is so much higher than the one on the left. You can see it's almost double the size right there. Right there, it's bursting out of this thing. You could just see it. There's no getting around it. Yeah, it's almost taking out the camera. Building out energy in different ways here, guys, and we're doing it in an unconventional fashion. But I think that's the nature of energy production. You can only pound your head against the wall for so long before you try something different. And this is one of the efforts of doing it differently. We're building an anode cathode effect, but then we're taking the cathode and making a secondary anode. We can make more energy this way. We can run multiple systems off the same thing. Or we can stick it into one and amplify the one that we're running. Because we can see it happen. You're seeing the amplification on the one on the right. It goes into a bigger one. Why? Because it's the same resonance frequency. It just has a higher amplitude of the resonance. See, physics always writes that off. They say resonance doesn't do anything. It can't create more energy in a system. And they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. As soon as you amplify the amount that goes in there, then you change it. What do I mean? It's just very simple understanding. Go to your oscilloscope, you run resonance across there, it's about this high. And it's going to be the same number that comes across there in the frequency, in the resonance frequency, but the thing's going to go like this and go off your oscilloscope. Now, you didn't change any dials, it just went off the screen, right? Well, it started like this and went like this. What'd you do? It's the amplitude. It's the distance it has to travel all the way up and back down is the amplitude. Well, what did you do? You gave the resonance more amplitude, so it gave it more power. It was able to pull a ton more power, so it got much bigger. You see, the small one's in resonance, and it goes to the bigger one, and it's amplifying the resonance inside of it, making it bigger. Now that we know that, we know how to amplify the system. One thing I do use is CVS, and I have a cap switching bank, which will allow me to change whatever frequency and amplitude I want. So with the specialty equipment, we go in there and we flip the switches and we get it to change. We change the capacitance value in it. Once we do that, we change the size of the RAV. Why? Because we can change the capacitance where it matches the resonance frequency and puts it into the correct resonance. Then we can change the amplitude of it. So it's radiant arc vortexes, RAV. Just so you know, we'll be putting I've been putting quite a bit of a presentation together. I have 17 pages on a presentation already. We're working on some of the physics of it, just getting outlined the actual ones that match what we're doing. Those will be in there. But as far as outlining, it's already done. And yeah, we're going to be presenting it soon. I've been avoiding presenting it on my channel. We've been showing some of the clips, but I've been avoiding presenting it on the channel because I wanted to make sure that everybody saw it in the correct fashion. These things build out in 360 degrees, not 2D. So I wanted to make sure that I went into my CAD program and correctly represented what was going on. I did not want anybody to think it was a two-dimensional image that they were looking at, so I made sure I put everything in 3 dimensions. That way we can really see it. And then I looked up all the physics terms to go with it, so you're going to find something new for me. Okay, and I know that people who have been watching my channel for a while know this. I say things in common terms so that everybody can understand them. I do not say things in physics terms. I will be saying it in the presentation in physics terms so that everybody has it. I want to leave no doubt, and I'll add all the math that goes with it. Joe and I are both working on that right now. Once we're done with that, man, we'll be ready to present. I think the first time we're going to present the RAV is going to be with Steve. And on Friday, in a couple days, we're going to another channel, guys, and I'll get you guys a post on it. But we're going to be talking anti-gravity. Okay, and I can't wait because it's a show that actually is kind of old school. Okay, kind of old school vibe to it, man. The guy that's on the channel that does all of it contacted me several times, man, and I want to say thank you to him. But we're going on there, man. We're gonna do anti-gravity. I'll have a post for you guys tomorrow morning and get you guys a link to the show. I'm excited for that. I'll do my normal shows that I do on Friday. We'll do our show here. We'll do Mike's show on Extraordinary Gentlemen, and then we'll do the final show, man. And we'll be doing anti-gravity. So I'll be sending you guys a link on that once it's out. So yeah, let me see real quick. I just want to get this in there. It's a Traveler show, and we're going to see Baker over there on that show. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for that one, man. I love to talk anti-gravity and UFOs. You probably know that by now, but it's going to be a good time, man. And then anybody that will have us after we get our presentation together, we want to travel to their channel and do the presentation. So if you're interested in that, man, let us know, and we'll absolutely go there with, you know what I mean? Tell everybody in our audience, and hopefully they all join. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, guys. We're going to see TC from Tesla Tech, I believe, Saturday, and do a presentation there. And then on Friday, we're going to see Baker, man, with the Travelers, and we're going to have an awesome show with UFO and anti-gravity and stuff. So with all that said, man, I want to thank everybody for coming in and watching me today. I really do appreciate it. I know there's a lot of new people in here. Hopefully you guys will come back and watch this again. I really do appreciate everybody in there in the stream and everybody who's usually with me. Thank you guys very much, and have yourself a great night.
The old man will. The old man will. The old old man builds. The old man builds.
The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds.
The old man builds.
Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to instead.
The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds.
Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend.
The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds.
Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend.
The old man builds.